Well, it's a primetime live. Thought you guys deserved one of these during this dead period of the offseason. Normally coming on earlier in the day, but we got to get some regular season vibes in here. And guess what? I got the blazer on as well. And when the blazer on, it's a big deal. And that's because we're talking about the 49ers defensive line today, going through every single position group here in late June, heading into early July, talking 49ers football while we take stock of what happened in the offseason. So we did the State of the Franchise series a few months ago, but ever since then, the 49ers have had the draft, they've had free agency, they've added to the room. There are now 16 defensive linemen on this team. This is the engine of the 49ers. Everybody who's been around this team, covered this team since 2017, that's when I came aboard, when John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan took over, knows that the defensive line is the heartbeat. So we wear the blazer today because this is serious. And I have a question. Will the 49ers defensive line be the best in the NFL in 2022? In 2019, they were the best unit in the NFL. In 2020, they might have been the best unit in the NFL, but injuries happened, so they definitely weren't in 2020. And then in 2021, the 49ers definitely didn't start as the best unit in the National Football League, but they finished like it. I mean, they were really, really good down the stretch. Chris Kasarik, D-line coach, one of the best in the business, if not the best in the business, and he got this team and this line firing on all cylinders down that stretch run. So the question is, where will the 49ers be in 2022 along that defensive line? Because if you look at the state of the defensive line piece, this is something that we wrote way back in February. You see that the headlining picture is the guy who's not a 49er anymore. That's DJ Jones, big number 93. He's now with the Denver Broncos, left in free agency, over $10 million per year. So immediately you see that the 49ers have a big hole to fill. And they had other departures, such as Arden Key, who had over 6 sacks for this team last year. They're going to have to find a way to pick up that slack, and they're going to have to find a way to not start as slowly along the defensive line as they did last season. For that, I take you to the splits from the 2021 season. Blue is good, red is bad. And in 2021, you had 3 splits, weeks 1 to 7, first column, weeks 8 to the conference championship game in the second column. And then I further subdivided that split for weeks 14 to the conference title game in the third column. This is pass rushing productivity, so it measures pressures, sacks, hits, all that, puts it all together through one, aggregate formula. And you see a lot of red, a lot of bad in weeks 1 to 7. That means the 49ers were below average. All the guys that were in red were below average rushing the passer, generating pressure. But after week 8, it's a whole lot of blue. And after week 14, it's a whole lot of dark blue. So that's how better the 49ers got throughout the course of last season. They gelled as a defensive line. And that was one of my first questions to Nick Bosa a few weeks ago at the 49ers veteran minicamp. I said, hey, do you guys think that you can carry over the success that you saw late in the season in 2021 into 2022? And he lit up and immediately said, yeah, I think that we could carry that over because they have players like Charles Omenihu, picked up in a trade from the Texans last year, who hit his stride as the season went along. Samson Ebukam was a free agent, remember, in 2021. 49ers picked him up after some time with the Rams. Kendrick Bourne's former college teammate at Eastern Washington started slow, finished strong. He's one of the guys that's in dark blue as you hit week 14 onward. So there were a lot of players who clicked for the 49ers late. Maybe they did so because Nick Bosa was drawing triple teams toward the end of that year because he was so dominant throughout. But the 49ers will still have that advantage in 2022. Nick Bosa is still on this football team. So the question is, can they replicate the improvement that they saw last year, but actually started earlier in the year in 2022? And then can they take the added pieces that we'll talk about here in just a second and plug them in to effectively fill in for guys like DJ Jones and Arden Key and company to make this defensive line special? Because it was special down the stretch in 2021. It was special in 2019. It is the heartbeat of this football team, and it's worth examining what the keys are for the 49ers to excel along the defensive front. So there are 2. For the 49ers to be the best D-line in football, there are 2 overarching keys. Key number 1, a scary complement to Nick Bosa must emerge. And key number 2, the 49ers must take care of the interior vacuum post DJ Jones. You no longer have big 93 up in the middle. You have to find a way to replace his production, because what happens is if you take care of the vacuum on the inside, then versatile guys like Eric Armstead can play more out on the edge, can play that complement to Nick Bosa. So you take care of key 2, you have key one way more figured out. And you have adaptable linemen on this team. They're strong in numbers. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But at the end of the day, you want guys playing where they're going to be most effective. You don't want guys playing somewhere where they have to be a Band-Aid. And last year, Eric Armstead might have saved the 49ers season by playing so much inside. But Eric Armstead is a good inside-out player. He could play both. You want to kick him inside on those passing downs. But you also want him to be able to play some edge, right? And if he's playing some edge on the base downs, he's such a strong run defender there. He can only do that if the 49ers have the inside taken care of, and that's where Javon Kinlaw is going to have a huge, huge role for this football team this season. So key one and key two, they're going to work hand in hand, and we're going to talk about them right now. I'm going to pop open the 49ers roster because I have this depth chart up there. Maybe have this take up the full screen and just take a look at the defensive line. All 16 men. I'm highlighting it right here. You go 53-man projection. I have 10 of them, and then you go all the way to the right, and you have a total of 16. D Ford still on the football team, hasn't yet been released. That still remains a bit of a mystery to me because we're at the point of the offseason now where the 49ers can release D Ford and save some cap space. They haven't done so yet, so maybe they're just waiting until it becomes something they have to do. Right now, they can be in a holding pattern. But it doesn't seem like they expect D Ford to suit up for them again, based on what Kyle Shanahan has said. He is still on the roster, though, even though a release can happen. So I've marked D Ford on that roster as release expected. But, you go to the front line, and the front line should probably include a couple strings of guys because they're going to rotate in and out. They're going to try to stay fresh. But you have Bosa and Armstead are this team's top two defensive linemen. Javon Kinlaw. It is Javon Kinlaw's time. He's in there at one of those defensive tackle spots. DJ Jones is gone. Kinlaw's the big man in the middle. The 49ers, they draft Javon Kinlaw to South Carolina in 2020. They get a little bit out of him in 2020, but he gets hurt down the stretch, suffered a pretty serious knee injury there against the Dallas Cowboys late in that season. And it didn't seem that ever fully healed. He was still struggling early in 2021, and the 49ers shut him down. And they sent him down to Dr. Neil Elatrache in the LA area. He's the team doctor for the Rams, but he's an ACL specialist. He did Nick Bosa's operation on the ACL, and they found ACL damage. And they had Elatrache go ahead and perform ACL reconstruction surgery on Javon Kinlaw. So the hope for the 49ers is that Javon Kinlaw has underperformed over the past couple of years because he's actually playing on a hurt ACL that was not diagnosed until a little bit later. And if that is indeed the case, and the 49ers did indeed identify what was wrong, they're hoping that they get a new Javon Kinlaw this year. And I can't emphasize how important that will be for this defensive line, because at the end of the day, you have a great unit in 2019, right? That great unit featured a lot of guys on rookie deals. You're not going to be able to keep excellent defensive linemen forever on rookie deals. They're going to age out of those rookie deals. They're going to sign elsewhere for big money. In fact, the 49ers are probably lucky to be able to hold on to DJ Jones for the 2021 season because he was hurt for a lot of 2020. His market was depressed. They didn't catch that break again in 2022. DJ stayed healthy. He signed with the Denver Broncos for the 49ers could pay. The only way that you keep the line moving, pun intended, is if you hit on your draft picks. And the 49ers, after they traded DeForest Buckner away early in that 2020 calendar year, they essentially used the pick, the first rounder they got back from the Colts, to draft Javon Kinlaw. They have to have a block-gobbling interior presence that can also rush the passer to allow the wide nine to flourish. The way that the wide nine defense works is that the defensive linemen are going to line up a little bit further apart from each other than most schemes. You're relying and trusting on their athleticism to be able to operate in space, because teams could gash you right up the middle with the run game. You want to line those defensive ends up wide so they can roar around the edge. You have guys like Nick Bosa. You had D Ford. Probably won't have him again, but you signed a guy like Kamoko Toure, free agent from the Indianapolis Colts, extremely twitchy edge rusher. You have Drake Jackson, the second-round pick out of USC. These are all guys the 49ers think can win off the edge. And Chris Kasarik, their defensive line coach, he got the wide nine from Jim Washburn, his mentor. You're trying to facilitate and set these edge rushers up for the greatest possible success by letting them line up further wide nine, and come around the offensive tackles. You're trusting the proliferation of DN talent, physical talent, over the development of offensive tackles over the course of the past decade or so. That's been the story of the NFL. That's why edge rushers get paid so much. You emphasize that they beat the offensive tackles, and through that, they become the great neutralizers of opposing passing games. So the 49ers are trying to accentuate that with the wide nine. But there is a potential drawback. And that potential drawback is that when you are elongated along the defensive front, there are bigger gaps in between the defensive linemen, and opposing offenses can theoretically run right up the middle. Remember the Lions in week 1? They gashed the 49ers 3 or 4 times. They had big runs right up the middle. 49ers linebackers didn't fit their gaps properly. You put a whole lot of pressure on the linebackers in that situation, but you can also alleviate some of that pressure by taking care of business with your interior defensive linemen. And those guys are playing on islands in the middle with that front stretched out in the wide nine. But that's why the 49ers entrusted Javon Kinlaw with a first-round pick. That first-round pick for Javon Kinlaw, for that massive, massive human, calves, pillars of granite, they're saying, hey, you have to be able to not only take on double teams on the interior, but you have to be able to survive in space on this island in the interior to activate our wide nine, because you earn the right to rush the passer. Those edge guys can't fire off the edge on pass obvious downs when they can just pin their ears back and go after the quarterback if you don't stop the run and make pass obvious downs on the early downs. And that all is going to come back to a guy like Kinlaw. DJ Jones handled the role so well for the 49ers in the past when he was healthy. But again, you can't pay guys forever. And now the 49ers need Kinlaw, one of their first-round draft picks, to come through. So that's going to be key for the 49ers on the inside. In fact, that's key too. The 49ers must take care of the interior vacuum past DJ Jones to set up those edge rushers on the outside. And then, if they take care of business on the inside, if you stop the run, clog the middle, take care of the challenges the wide nine presents your own defense, then you can unleash the benefits that the wide nine presents your own defense. But for that to truly happen, somebody's got to step up opposite Nick Bosa. A committee of guys did it last year, and that's why I say that strength in numbers is how the 49ers win up front. So the committee of guys between Ebicom, between Jordan Willis, Charles Omenihu, all those guys did it last year down the stretch, especially after week 14. But here in 2022, the 49ers would certainly like a more singular name to step up. So we wonder, how soon can their second-round pick, number 61 overall, Drake Jackson, the top draft pick for the 49ers in this 2022 class, how soon can Drake Jackson turn into the Drake Jackson that the 49ers envision? They think that this guy's a first-round talent. And you look at some of the tape at USC back from Jackson's freshman year in 2019, you could see why the 49ers think that. When that guy played a true edge position at USC, he was a monster on the field. He was a true edge rusher at 270, 275 pounds. We know about his ability to backflip, super athletic. But then he played out of position for 2 years because guys got hurt. They made him lose weight. He was more of a drop-in coverage linebacker on a lot of downs, and he kind of disappeared. But now Jackson's up back to 265. Maybe he'll reach 270. And the 49ers are playing him in what they truly believe and on what I think objectively is his natural position. So will Jackson show up and immediately be a true complement to Nick Bosa? On the other side, he's going to be rolling around the edge. He's going to be beating guys with power. Or is it going to take him a while to develop? Because if it takes him a little while to develop, that's why the 49ers have made one of their free agent signings. That's Kamoko Toure. Played for the Colts. Now he's with the 49ers. 252 pounds, cut from the lighter edge rushing mold, but he's got a nice big 6'5" frame. And this guy can burst off the edge. Toure is a player who I think fits the wide nine really, really well. I talked to Chris Kasarik about a month ago. You could see his eyes light up when he's talking about Kamoko Toure. He's really excited about this veteran piece. And what this is here for is to give Drake Jackson time. And you still have Samson Ebicom, who finished well last year, right? You still have Jordan Willis on this roster. You still have Charles Omenihu, who developed after that trade from the Texans. So, again, strength in numbers is how the 49ers win up front. But I'm just trying to get you to help you understand what some of these new pieces like Kamoko Toure will bring to the table. We also talk about the inside, and we talk about it being Javon Kinlaw's time. Well, on the inside, Hassan Ridgeway, formerly of the Eagles, he was a free agent pickup. He's got a really, this guy's chest. Hassan Ridgeway can be a fire hydrant for the 49ers in the middle. I think that they really felt the need to replace the block gobbling capability of DJ Jones, who's able to anchor down against those double teams. And Javon Kinlaw, huge guy, 49ers hope that, he develops some pass rushing skills, but he doesn't have the fire hydrant build, right? Javon Kinlaw is massive. He's more of the skyscraper build, but I mean, the lower body is strong, trust me, but he's not that low to the ground. You still need a low to the ground defensive tackle to really anchor, against the double teams that you're going to see, to keep that run defense sturdy enough so he can earn the right to pass rush. And I think Hassan Ridgeway is going to be part of that effort for the 49ers. He was one of their free agent signings this year. So why don't we, I put Burley there for Hassan Ridgeway. Burley, I think, is the best adjective. With strength in numbers, we should just look at the 49ers depth chart right here up front. We can go through player by player. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments section. By the way, if you're just coming in, why don't you like the channel, or, you can like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's probably better as we go through this position by position. Everybody knows who Bosa is and what Bosa can do. You look at the numbers from last year, Bosa consistent pass rush productivity in the dark blue throughout. Armstead, in my opinion, he's so good on the inside on those pass downs because his athleticism and his size is just too much for offensive guards to handle. But in the case of Eric Armstead, they had to play him 100% on the inside after week 7 last year due to injuries and the fact that they, didn't have the firepower to do what they wanted to do at that position. So Armstead did a great job for the 49ers. It was key to the 2022 season, but I love him on base downs out at the edge. I mean, there are very few better edge defenders against the run on first down than Eric Armstead. And, he can give you a little bit of pass rushing capability from the edge as well. So Eric Armstead is a very valuable player for the 49ers because of his versatility up front. But I think you have to unlock that versatility, and you do that by getting quality contributions from other players. Then we get the Kinlaw, obviously coming off the ACL, expected to be ready by training camp. That's going to be huge. Sansom Ebukam. Let's take a look at Sansom Ebukam right here. Third row down. Look at the terrible pass rush productivity weeks 1 to 7, 2.6. That's really bad. But he just surged 9.1, then 9.4 later on. I mean, this is a guy with real explosive physical traits. I mean, one of the top scoring athletes coming out of Eastern Washington, played on that red field with Kendrick Bourne in 2017. 49ers saw potential written all over him. A little bit like Drake Jackson. He didn't play a pure pass rushing position for most of his college career at Eastern Washington. And then he played for the Rams, but he didn't play in a 4-3, coming off the edge as, a true Leo speed rusher does until he hit the 49ers. So maybe it's no surprise that you had Sansom Ebukam struggle at the start of the year before turning it up late. So they're going to have to hope that Sansom Ebukam continues that roar and play moving into the 2022 season. You go into the Bravo unit, Charles Amenahu, I mean, another physical specimen. The dude's 6'5", 280, 285 pounds. He turned it on toward the end of last year. You see him in this chart, 9.0, 11.1. Weeks 14, the championship game for Amenahu. Kerry Hyder. I mean, I'm surprised I haven't mentioned Kerry Hyder yet. When everybody got hurt in 2020, the 49ers really needed, a fairly random free agent acquisition in Kerry Hyder to step up. And he turned into a top 15 pass rusher in terms of pass rush productivity. I mean, he earned a contract from Seattle. They cut him after 1 year because he wasn't nearly as effective in Seattle's system. But Kerry Hyder's a Chris Kasarik guy. Played under Kasarik in Detroit several years ago, then went to Dallas, then went to the 49ers, posted a career year, made himself some money. Now he's back with the 49ers. And the thing about Hyder, he's 50-50. He could play defensive tackle. He could play end. He's one of those versatile pieces that the 49ers can flex into whatever they need. And I think they're really happy to have him back on the roster this season. Go down to Ridgeway. Of course, he's not going to play end. He's going to be a standard defensive tackle type. Then Toure, he's not going to play defensive tackle. Kamoko Toure is going to be a standard end at 252 pounds. Amenahu, interestingly enough, at 6'5", 280. I mean, especially with his athleticism, that's an enviable size-speed combination. Amenahu was lining up on some snaps on the inside during OTAs, some passing downs on the inside. So they're running what they did with Eric Armstead and Arden Key, right? Moving those guys inside, at least on passing downs. And I think that might be something the 49ers try with Amenahu in 2022. The reason that I ask the question at the top, will the 49ers D-line be the best in the NFL, is I've already talked about a ton of talented guys, 8 to be exact, and we still have way more to talk about. And again, strength in numbers on the D-line, 49ers certainly have it. So I still have Maurice Hurst making the roster. He played in only 2 games last year, was hurt. If Hurst can be healthy, he's a plus defensive tackle. He can really help the 49ers with key number 2, take care of that interior vacuum. So Hurst is on there. Then obviously Drake Jackson at number 61. You can like the video, sub to the channel. I have a ton of content with Drake Jackson on The Athletic where we delve deep into things. In fact, maybe I even post that link to that article in the comment section. Wrote a big feature on Drake Jackson after he was drafted. Outside looking in right now, I mean, I think the 49ers probably take 11 defensive linemen, so not all these guys will be on the outside looking in. But for now, I have them on the bubble. You have Jordan Willis, big-time special teams hero for the 49ers. And, last year that was against Green Bay where he blocked the punt. But, I mean, Willis turned it up last year, 7.5 pass rush productivity week 14 onward. So Willis is, I mean, you have to love his attitude. I mean, he decided that he didn't want the attention on him after blocking the punt, the famous block punt in Green Bay. So Jordan Willis, decides to not do a press conference after that game. And then he does a press conference later in the week after his teammates have gotten their shine, and in probably the most eloquent way possible. I mean, he just explains how the football team got to where they did, to the NFC Championship game, through selflessness, through digging themselves out of a hole, and complete team play. So Willis right now, I'm outside looking in, but I wouldn't be surprised due to his special teams prowess, due to the fact that he's earned a spot, in past years. I wouldn't be surprised to see him as part of the group for the 49ers on that defensive line. Certainly a good problem to have. Alex Barrett's been a practice squad guy for this team in the past. And Kevin Atkins is a defensive tackle out of Fresno State who probably is going to be headed to the practice squad for some seasoning time. But he's twitchy too. So even guy like 14, guy 15 in this 16-man defensive line room is a force to be reckoned with. They're very, very deep, and that's why we have the initial question, will the 49ers defensive line be the best in the NFL? Last guy on this depth chart, Kalia Davis, tore his ACL. Now, Davis, I mean, he's rookie, Central Florida. He used to play middle linebacker. You don't see that position switch very often. You'll see outside linebacker to D end. You don't see middle linebacker to D tackle. That's crazy because middle linebacker is the guy that's got to fly from side to side. He's the furthest away technically from being a defensive lineman. And if he's going to be a defensive lineman, you would think he'd be a lighter defensive lineman trying to come around the edge. But no, Kalia Davis went from middle linebacker at Central Florida to nose tackle at Central Florida. And if you watch his tape, he still tackles with the fluidity of a linebacker, even though he weighs 300 pounds. Maybe that had something to do with him tearing his ACL last year. Maybe he put on a little too much bulk for the ligaments to handle. I don't know. I haven't seen his medical records, but the 49ers believe they might have a steal with Kalia Davis. They didn't draft him until the 6th round. So, I mean, he might not be available in 2022 because he is recovering from this injury, but it's obvious what the 49ers are going for here. They want explosiveness up front, and Kalia Davis is a player they think is exceptionally explosive. All right, so that's the look at the 49ers defensive line. A lot of questions pouring in, so why don't we answer some of these? Wanted to do a primetime show because I thought that you deserved a primetime show, and I thought the 49ers defensive line deserved the blazer. So we're getting a little bit more formal here because it's the off season. We got to get pumped up for the season. We're exactly a month away from the start of 49ers training camp. That's going to be on July 29th. That's when players report to the facility. Is June 29th. We're bridging the gap. We're busting out the blazer as we talk about the 49ers defensive line. Now, remember that if you're walking in right now into this chat room, or I guess it's a YouTube room, but there's a chat room on the side, like the video, subscribe to the channel. More and more content's going to be coming through The Athletic and obviously here, and we're going to try to intertwine it all. Someone from the defensive line is going to get traded. Can't keep all of them. Maybe you can. The 49ers have certainly tried to keep all of them. I mean, you could try to stash 11 or even 12, which I doubt, but 11 on the 53-man roster. But one thing is the guys are going to get hurt, right? So if somebody gets hurt, then all of a sudden you have one more spot. Kalia Davis is almost certainly going to be on a injury list to start the season. So there you go. That's ensured that he won't take up a spot. So you never know. And the 49ers, I mean, people were sure they're going to trade a guy, I think it was last year. And they didn't end up trading anybody because the defensive line is so valuable to them. So they find a way to stash some of these players because this position is so important. All right. Post your questions if you have any. I think the call to action here came from Mike. Wasn't Kinlaw drafted to play 3 technique, Buckner replacement, not nose? Do you think that he'll be asked to play a different technique, or will he bump Eric outside on base downs? No, I still see Javon Kinlaw as primarily a 3 technique, but he does have some 1 tech flexibility. He can play some nose. When I talk about defensive tackle and the interior, I'm referring to it in general, because those guys are all on islands. I don't care if you're the 3 tech or if you're playing nose at the 1 tech. You have to be athletic enough to gobble the blocks while also make plays in space. You can't let a guy run right by you. And then you also have to pass rush if the opponent's going to drop back to pass. There are a lot of duties for the 49ers interior defensive linemen, and they have to be sturdy. And that 3 tech spot's really important, as we saw from DeForest Buckner, as we saw Eric Armstead take care of last year. I think that, there's going to be some rotation up front, but Javon Kinlaw, regardless of which defensive tackle position he passed the man, he's going to have to be good at that spot, because otherwise you don't get to do the rest of what you want to do as a defensive line. It all works together. With your knowledge of how the Niners manage their roster, will Ebukam's contract factor in to him keeping his starting role over someone like Jackson? No. The fact that Ebukam is probably physically stronger and faster than Jackson at this point, just because Jackson's going to be a rookie, this is going to be a meritocracy up front. Ebukam doesn't have a crazy contract. He's going to be making, $6 million this year. You're going to be rotating edge rushers anyway. So you're going to start and play whoever's best most, but you're going to need more than, 2 guys at a position. You really want to keep this unit fresh. So I have full belief that the 49ers will be running a total meritocracy along the defensive line. And again, strength in numbers is how they win up front. It's not just going to be 4 guys. You're going to have that full rotation, 8, maybe 9 guys really contributing up at that line of scrimmage. When is D Ford getting released? I'm not really sure at this point. Maybe the 49ers are holding out a glimmer of hope that he can produce. Maybe they're just waiting until they need the cap space to actually release him, since it doesn't benefit them to do it earlier. I don't know. That's one that I'm still trying to figure out. But D Ford indeed is still on the roster, and it doesn't seem like Kyle Shanahan expects them to play for the 49ers again. All right. Any more questions? Let's see. I'm going to scroll up. With the D-line taking on their assignments, who do you see in the blitz packages this year? Didn't seem like Warner excelled at the role, and K1 was solid, but now gone. Well, that's going to be interesting with the blitz packages. I thought that Fred was really good blitzing in 2019 and 2020. Might have lost a little bit of effectiveness this past season, but DeMeco Ryans really likes DB blitzes, I think, more than Robert Saleh did. So we did see K1 blitz a lot. We will see that slot blitz a lot. I mean, there's the Shark, right? K1 Williams. That was one of his strong suits. Saved the game in week 14 against Cincinnati. That was so huge for the 49ers. So how will they replicate that? Well, I talk about Darquez Dennard in an article. It's coming out soon on The Athletic. Make sure to check that out. He's going to be probably the starting nickelback, because the 49ers trust a veteran there. And, they drafted Samuel Womack III out of Toledo with a big focus on his blitzing capabilities, because blitzing is going to be important. They could bring safety blitzes as well, too. At the end of the day, though, if this defensive line does what it's supposed to do, and it plays up to the level that Chris Kasarik thinks it could play out with this strength in numbers, I don't think you need to blitz that much. The 2019 49ers didn't blitz hardly at all. They're roaring off the edge. They had Buckner coming up the middle. Yes, that was a generational defensive line. But the 49ers have invested so much in this line since then, even though they did trade Buckner away, that at some point you invest so much, you come to at least hope, but maybe even expect the defensive line to single-handedly take over games, so that you don't have to use a blitz bullet, because you only have so many blitz bullets, right? Once you use a blitz bullet, the opposing quarterback's going to figure it out. If he's, a competent NFL quarterback, use that blitz bullet again, well, he's probably going to burn you. He's probably going to throw to where your blitzer came from. So it's key for the defensive line to get the job done on itself. 4-man rushes can win Super Bowls almost single-handedly. Almost did for the 49ers in 2019. Yeah, Azeez El-Shire was solid in blitz packages last year. It's a good call. Good call there from Kyle. And this right here is exactly what I'm saying. If healthy, this defensive line might be consistently terrorizing because of its depth. Boom. That's, you hit that right on the target. Strength in numbers is how the 49ers win up front. I couldn't agree more with that comment. Hopefully the 49ers stay as healthy as 2019. That would be very big for them. Last year, the 49ers run defense improvement coincided with Armstead moving inside. That's very true. They started stonewalling the run as soon as Armstead moved inside because they weren't good enough to set up their right to rush the passer. Where do you see Armstead providing a greater benefit, from the inside or the outside? Again, base downs, outside defensive ends. I think he's great at setting that edge against the run and base downs. Passing downs, Armstead working from the inside. I think at some point, Kinlaw was a first-round pick. He's had the ACL surgery. He's looking jacked. He's looking healthy. He's got to be the one that produces to give you the flexibility to use Eric Armstead where you want. All right, good stuff, guys. Everybody like the video, subscribe to the channel. We went through the whole gamut of the 49ers defensive line, and we're going to be going through every single position group. So if you've missed some of these videos, make sure you sub to the channel. You'll see them here. Got another article coming out with Athletic tomorrow, so I'll be live with you soon. It's Blazer time, even though it's late June. Everybody take care. Thanks for watching on this beautiful Wednesday evening.